This little piggy was an SKP, this little piggy was rewilded, and this little piggy is a British wild boar in Cai's crosshairs in Gloucestershire.
It's going to be a long night, David. Really long.
Dave the dog completes his series of 3 great retrieves showing how he trains cockers to flush on open ground. Highlanders are on the warpath. Deborah Hadfield reports on the battle between the Assynt Crofters Trust and John Muir Trust over deer stalking, and it's a cracker.
Bullied by a government quango and a conservation body. And to be quite honest and quite straightforward about this, we are not going to put up with it.
We're giving away British shooting show tickets a pair, each to 5 lucky winners. David has the news on the news stump and James Marchington has hunting YouTube. Welcome to Fieldsports Britain. The truth behind the modern British wild boar story is as difficult to come across as the animals themselves. From the Kent escapees during the 1987 storm to the accidentally on purpose appearances in the southwest, in Scotland and in the Forest of Dean in Gloucestershire, which is where Cai will be hunting his British boar this evening.
Obviously I'm putting you what I consider to be the hot area at the minute, because there is a camera here, the chances are I'll shoot something before you do, because that's the way it works. There's a camera.
The fact is, no one knows how many boar roam and root around our countryside. Saying that, no one has a clue about the national deer population either. Anyway, back to boar, and the population in the southeast did not flourish because of intense hunting pressure and fragmented habitat. The expanse of the Forest of Dean is a different matter. The verges and gardens all across it bear the scars of very busy piggies. As we drive across the forest, Cai stops to chat to a resident who has had years of lawn abuse. He reseeds and repairs it every year, but as this strip is actually owned by the Forestry Commission, he's not allowed to protect it.
Every year they come destroy my front garden. And every year I put it back again.
Because it's not just you, it's the people along this whole street, isn't it?
Every single property along here will tell you the same. It's they come along, you can't put your bins out, you can't do anything about the fronts because we don't own the fronts, unfortunately, because otherwise we'd fence it. It's a nightmare. I mean, they've got to live, I know, but I wish they wouldn't come this side.
The boar may be a menace to homeowners, but they are also a wildlife relic with value. We meet our boar hunting guide, Warren Broad, at the Chiller.
Do you want to put it on the hook for us, please, Cai?
This boar and sow were shot yesterday in daylight on estates he manages.
10 years since my first one, and 6 years since getting quite heavily into it and looking after a few different properties. Obviously this is a new property for us, but we look after 3 in total now, and we'd remove 65 to 70 animals per what we would consider our season, which is September through to March.
So you do put a season on them?
We put a voluntary season on them, yeah. Sometimes a bit earlier. Obviously we've got to be very careful later on, particularly now into February, March. You've got heavy sows carrying young, which we've got to be firm on them on the estate's behalf, but also we don't want to be shooting heavily pregnant sows. We don't want to be shooting sows that have already had young. They're a resource as well as a nuisance. That's the problem. So it's finding the balance between the two.
Cai has had 2 pigs from previous outings, so we would love to make it 3 out of 3. This was his last one.
Quite often, like a lot of people come and obviously join us for boar stalking as guests and whatnot, and they will, I'll sit all night, and usually the phone rings before 9 o'clock. It's cold.
Too cold.
Yeah.
Especially tonight, it's going to be freezing.
Yeah. So.
Well, we've got our hand warmers.
Got that? Yeah.
And trust me, are these going to be everywhere? I'm going to put these all over.
They're going to go a lot more places than just a hand.
Any type of wildlife management requires compromise. The local estates want them at a level where they're not damaging their crops, their gardens, and their bottom line. Chris Waskett is a local forester who has been working to try and limit boar damage since they appeared on this estate well over a decade ago.
So that's a young oak sapling as they come from the nursery. What we've had problems with before is boar coming in and rooting these up.
So you actually take it out from the bottom?
And grubbing them out of the ground. And my theory is, which I share with few other
Yeah.
people in forestry I know, is a boar can smell the fresh digging, and where we've been digging out the soil, and they can smell the disturbance, and probably smell that fresh compost, which has got bits of fertiliser and all sorts from the nursery.
So then they go in
and they go in, lift
Yeah.
that out, taste it. They don't like it, dump it, but it's still
Yeah, just
trash
really-
the
yeah,
tree.
trash.
So yeah, that's experience I've had.
No matter how we manage them on this property, you will get an influx from across the road, which is where the majority, you know, anytime we have road collisions with the pigs, it's always in the same stretch of road coming from the forestry over.
Historically,
So we shoot a couple and a couple more move in, or a new sounder come across, a sow gets pushed out, or they're shot from the crown ground next door, you know, and all they do is move in. So it's never going to be an eradication thing, it's just keep on top of them as much as we can.
According to the Forestry Commission, which conducts a survey every year to estimate boar numbers, the current population of wild boar in the Forest of Dean is 441. Their target population is 400, and the cull is currently ongoing to achieve that. To give these numbers context, the largest number of boar shot or run over on the Forest of Dean's roads in recent years was 803 in the 2020-2021 season. With time marching on, Cai wants to check zero before settling in for a night on the high seat. He has put an ATN thermal scope on his Bagara Crest rifle in 308.
So we're just going to do a... Oh, there
What's
he is.
that?
Quick zero, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I zeroed it yesterday. Oh. And it's the ATN Mars 4. And just because it's kind of new to me, it's been on the rifle, it was all good. I went to Tim's range yesterday and I'm pretty happy with it. I'm just going to heat this spot up here, the white spot. Just peace of mind for me. I just want to make sure I go out tonight with the clear mind that the rifle's shooting straight, and then hopefully, well, we'll get one. If there's any mistake, then I know it's down to me. So with any luck, Warren's just setting up now.
What's he doing? Because it's a thermal unit, isn't it? So what's he putting up there?
So I actually went to the pound shop and I got a pack of 5 hand warmers for £1, which is amazing.
I was going to say, for £17.50.
For £17.50. For £1, yeah, and it's great because they will act, obviously as a zero, it's probably about 2-3 inches, and for what we want to do this evening, that's perfectly adequate. So, but I'm going to be shooting with the Bagara Crest. It's a really, really nice rifle, very impressed with it. Let's see if we can get this on, and then we'll head out.
Unlike even the smallest deer, there are no rules about minimum firepower that you can use for British boar.
So I'm using a Norma 170 grain, quite a heavy round, perfect for the wild boar.
Basque recommends 270 with a 130 grain bullet and 2,600 foot-pounds of muzzle energy.
One's just, you can't complain of that, look. One's there. And one's
No, look, one's there.
There you go.
That's the 2 there. That's bang on.
Good zero that is.
Well done, young man.
Impressed with that.
Have you shot before?
I'm always surprised when he gets it on the paper.
I tell you, it's nice from a guy's point of view to know that people can shoot though, yeah. Very good.
Like a little tea bag.
No, I'm well happy with that.
No excuses now, we just got to find the animal.
Yeah.
So where's the feed station?
We've got one in that muddy patch down there basically, which is a bit of a wallow, and then there's one just over the brow up there into that bracken bank as well, so you've got two lines of shooting. So it's quite narrow.
All we need to do now is have a wild boar pass by and have a chew on either of the 2 bait stations in sight of the high seat.
It's a bit cosy.
It's a bit dirty.
I'm just going to load this rifle up.
Warren says unless he hears otherwise, he will come and pick us up at 9, which means 4 hours at -3 degrees centigrade.
This is going to be a long night, David. A really long night.
Once the light goes, David relies on the ATN thermal spotter. For 2 hours, there is nothing. A muntjac gives them something to enjoy and take their minds off their freezing extremities. Then at 8:15 p.m, Cai spots a boar. He stays trained on that feed station, expecting it to return. David is on the one in front. By the time Cai repositions, the boar has trotted on. Both had expected it to stop and eat, but apparently, at this time of year, they are on a mission to find females. With our chance gone, Warren has a plan B.
There's 4 boars stood out in the open of a field just down here behind us, hence the whispering. So we've just come round them on the wind to try and put a foot stalk in and see if we can get Cai onto them.
Do you do much stalking on foot for the boar now?
If we can find them in the open, it's good sport, but catching them out in the open cover is quite tricky, so there's very little wind. We'll see how we get on.
Are you going to make up for missing that big boar that
First of all,
danced in front of me?
I didn't miss it. I just didn't shoot it. It's a bit difficult when it's all cold and you can't feel your fingers. Try and get the rifle ready quiet and everything else like that, but he weren't stopping. So by the time I got the rifle on him, he'd already crossed, so it's just what happens.
This way it goes, isn't it?
Yeah, should we try and get these ones?
He's moving.
Using the ATN kit, we see boar he had spotted earlier. They are in the field where we had been zeroing. The nearest one is 140 metres. Cai can't get steady and the boar wind us anyway. They tear off across the field. Then Warren gets a call. Pete, one of the other shooters out tonight, has pigs close by. Warren thinks we might be able to intercept them. Walking up a ride, the thermal picks up the group.
I've lost my battery.
There's one behind the tree.
Well, there's one in this. Right, I've lost it.
Pig down. Yeah.
Cai takes the clearest shot on offer. Seconds later, Pete drops another from the group.
So literally we just come back through the gate, 30 yards past the gate on the left. I managed to get into position, and then I saw 3 of them, and I took, the first 2 went, I took the last one and dropped it. So we're going to go have a look at that in a minute. At the same time, Pete just shot another one, so that's 2 pigs down in the space of like 30 seconds. So it was a bit exciting. But yeah, so we're going to go have a look at these now. But yeah, that was amazing. That was really good.
That's Pete's one. Young male. Good deal. Yeah, I mean, great one for the food chain as well. This time of year you get a lot of the youngsters out on their own.
I'll shoot the Pete.
There's nothing domestic about that. That looks like a wild boar, doesn't it?
Like, you know, wild boar, they just amaze me. They're like, because we're not used to it either. I mean, I've seen quite a few in my time, but it's not like deer where I see them all the time. And it just, every time I get it, just gives me the goosebumps every time I see a wild boar like that. It just, and we still got to pick up my one in a minute as well. So, so you chose a shortcut, did you? Yeah. Not as wiry as the other one, is it?
Congratulations, mate. Shot.
Thank you very much, mate. That's our 3rd outing now, and that's the 3rd boar. It's lovely coming to the Forest of Dean and actually just not just shooting them, but seeing them as well. They're just such magnificent,
creature,
almost like mythical creatures.
Yeah, such a cool creature.
How do you want to do this? Front and back.
And sort of sliding down on.
Back at the larder, Warren gets to work on the boar.
I said Cai was just a bit slow to react, that was all.
They are a lovely rust colour thanks to local soil they roll around in. There is nothing domestic pig-looking about these animals. They look as wild boar as anything you'll see in mainland Europe. Look for convex snouts. Concave snouts means domestic. This means that British wild boar are on the menu. Eventually, Cai's pig and all Warren's animals will end up here at Deerbox, just a few miles down the M4.
I would always love more boar, for sure, especially with now we've got restaurants buying our sausage, wild boar and apple, and also the haunch steaks. As soon as they get up on the website, people are snatching them. Always do with more wild boar, for sure.
So this was about 50 kilos in the fur. It's just over 43 kilos. On the borderline for using for wild boar bacon. The likelihood of this one is we'll butcher this up. Steaks from the haunches, shanks, a little bit of diced. The bellies we might roll, or we might use that for our wild boar hot dogs that we do, a wild boar and apple hot dog. Shoulders we keep whole for braising. And then what we do with the loins is we'll do the 8-bone rack off the front and we'll leave the fat layer on, and then this section here we'll do into Barnsley chops.
Is demand outstripping supply here, Ben?
It is, yes. Venison is still our mainstay and people want to buy more of that, but there is a lot of searches for wild boar and it always sells out very quickly because the proportions of what we're producing are so much lower, 60 to 70 deer a week, and we might have 1 or 2 boar in that number. With all the other discussions that we're having as well with regards to the numbers of wild boar in the wild, it would appear that there aren't so many, and therefore from a sustainable harvesting perspective, there's going to be less meat coming through with the numbers that we have.
According to the guys on the ground, wild boar are here to stay in the Forest of Dean. Even the Forestry Commission accepts a 400-strong population. That's great news for hunters and lovers of wild meat that we have a sustainable resource. It's not so great for foresters and gardeners. If you would like to bag yourself a British wild boar, drop Warren a line on warren@deerbox.co.uk. Prices are the same for whatever boar crosses your path. To shoot one, you could use a Bergara crest, so check out ruag.co.uk or find it on Kitfinder. If you would rather just cut to the sausage, a wide selection of quality meats are available from deerbox.co.uk. Thank you, Cai, and all at Deerbox who made the film possible. Now, this week's prize is 5 pairs of tickets to the Great British Shooting Show. The UK's top showcase of shooting and hunting kit takes place once again at the NEC near Birmingham. It's on the 17th to the 19th of February 2023. It's bigger than ever, and if you don't win tickets, you can get discounted advance tickets from their website, link below. We will have a stand there and look forward to seeing you. Please come and say hello. If you'd like to know how to enter the draw, watch the Fieldsports Nation's own TV show, Fieldsports Extra, which is out on Tuesdays, and you can do that by joining the Fieldsports Nation for a £5 a month. Link below, or come and see us at the British Shooting Show. Now from flagship to local lugger, it is David on the Fieldsports Channel News Stump.
This is Fieldsports Channel News. Basque claims police are putting public safety at risk because of firearms licensing failings. The criticism comes in a written submission to the Home Affairs Committee inquiry into policing priorities. Basque says the 43 licensing authorities in England and Wales are unable to manage their workload, with some refusing to process grants and many taking more than a year to process renewals. It says a largely unprofessional, overburdened and poorly resourced police licensing service puts public safety at risk. The head of firearms for Basque, Bill Harriman, says urgent action is needed. He supports an idea put forward at the inquest into the Plymouth shootings that firearms officers should be retrained and accredited annually.
At the moment, there are many firearms inquiry officers who aren't trained, who are not directed, and a system of accreditation that they had to go back to on an annual basis to make sure they were fit to practice effectively is a very, very important proposition.
A video thought to have come from a WhatsApp group of poachers shows men and dogs bringing down a red stag. Be warned, it makes for distressing viewing. The footage shows one of the men repeatedly stabbing the stag in the heart and lungs area. It is thought to have been filmed in Nottinghamshire, where police have been cracking down on groups of poachers running dogs after deer under spotlights. The Countryside Alliance says the debate in Parliament on shortening the woodcock season is an attack on shooting. While Justice has collected more than 100,000 signatures, which triggered the discussion by MPs. It's calling for the season to shoot woodcock to be reduced to just 2 months in winter and not to start earlier than the beginning of December. Shooters say it is a pointless argument as it won't bring any benefit for the bird, which is common in Europe as far as Japan and is on the edge of its western range in the UK. The chief executive of the Countryside Alliance, Tim Bonner, says the Wild Justice petition is a waste of parliamentary time.
Personally, I wouldn't go out and shoot a woodcock in October or early November. I don't think there are very few people who do, if anyone. And you know, it's not unreasonable. I think many of us take an ethical view of that. But the idea that with all the challenges facing us, that this is an issue that is somehow important or a focus, I'm afraid it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. And it is merely a really niche attempt at attacking shooting.
Gamekeepers in South Yorkshire and Derbyshire are heading to the moors at night to count mountain hares. The Game and Wildlife Conservation Trust is leading the research. Results from last year show the number of hares was between 2 and 5 times higher than recent estimates, and similar to the number of mountain hares in Scotland. Gamekeepers have cast doubt on other studies funded by the conservation industry. Gamekeepers are counting the animals at night, as this is the more accurate way to calculate the true numbers. More than 30 people will be out counting. The initiative is supported by the National Trust, Basque NGO and the Peak District Moorland Group.
The reason we've carried out these mountain hare counts is to get a clear picture of what is happening in the Peak District to mountain hares. We know we've got mountain hares and whether they're increasing or declining. Of course, in common with other species, they go through natural cycles anyway, but we look forward to bringing you some results from that when we get them.
Complaints from aunties have killed plans to process deer carcasses in a rural larder in a English national park. Water company United Utilities wanted to build the facility near Hillswater in the Lake District. Residents claimed it would produce upsetting sights and smells. Aunties wrote to the Lake District National Park Authority to complain. United Utilities withdrew the planning application after the local authority concluded that the character and nature of the facility would unacceptably adversely affect nearby homes. Research by an English university supports the use of heather burning as a means of combating climate issues. York University has completed 10 years of a 20-year study into heather management for protecting carbon-rich peatlands. At the halfway point, the findings show that the burning and mowing of small patches of heather supports increased vegetation. This goes against studies funded by the conservation industry and adopted by the government, which limits muir burn in England. The York University study also recommends using muir burning to create fire breaks and avoid wildfires. A polar bear has killed a mother and son outside a school in a village in Alaska. The animal mauled 24-year-old Summer Myomick and her 1-year-old son Clyde. The bear chased residents in the town of Wales. Another resident shot and killed the animal as it attacked the 2 victims. It is the first fatal attack in Alaska in more than 30 years. The remote village has set up a GoFundMe page to raise money for the woman's family, including her surviving 3-year-old daughter. See below for the link to the fundraising page. Thank you to Per Helmseth for the story. Raising the minimum age threshold of male lions could increase hunting sustainability. That's the conclusion of a study led by the University of Oxford. They predict that the population of wild African lions will decline by half over the next 2 decades because of habitat loss due to agriculture, declining prey populations, conflicts with livestock farmers, illegal poaching and some hunting. Most trophy hunting areas across Africa have a minimum age threshold for hunted male lions of 6 years. The study by Oxford's Wildlife Conservation Research Unit and Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences looked at 500 lions in 40 prides and showed that trophy hunting of younger males in areas with higher levels of poaching or conflict led to severe population declines, while restricting hunting to older males did not lead to declines. And finally, many of us have been guilty of grabbing a late night kebab, but you may be forgiven for thinking you've had one too many if you stumbled across a seal. This seal pup was spotted wandering hundreds of metres inland past the Istanbul Delight kebab shop in Hensby, Norfolk. Marine and Wildlife Rescue captured it at 11 o'clock on a Friday night, loaded into a stretcher and helped it back to the beach. You are now up to date with Fieldsports Channel News. Stalking the stories, fishing for facts.
Buying shooting kits? Then head to Kit Finder and our team will help you find the right product at a fair price from dealers all over the UK. Kit Finder, the shooting kit comparison website.
Next, Dave Templar is training his dog to flush and retrieve in field trial style on open ground.
been flushed, and it's wounded. And look, she's taken a line all the way from where it landed. This is what you've got a dog for, picking up wounded game. Now this dog is taking a lovely line. We've let the dog do its job. Well done. If she had that in a trial, you'd be hard pushed to beat me, because actually, as you saw, the dog hit the fall. He was steady when it flushed it. Seb shot it, this marvellous man here, shot it, it ran, and it ran through here, and it could have gone on and on and on and on. And what it actually did, the dog checked the line, took the line, got the blood scent on it, carried on, started to lose it a little bit, but still had the will to want it, didn't come back, didn't look at me. I was nearly going to handle it actually, because I thought, oh no, I wanted to get it. And then all of a sudden it checked itself, took the line again, lucky the wind's in the right place also, but it's on ground scent mainly, on the blood scent. Took the line, found it, brought it back. That's what you've got a dog for. I can't do that. We'd be around all day trying to find that. So that's what the dog's for. So we've actually just proved today what a spaniel's there for. A spaniel's supposed to be working on ground scent, not on air scent. If we were working a pointer, and I've worked pointers, they're working on air scent. The spaniel should be working on ground scent. So this dog should have its nose on the ground, like it did there. That dog was using the scent of that blood scent. Now when it was hunting, all on ground scent. So its head's down, looking or using its nose to try and find birds or rabbits or whatever on the thing. So the head carriage should be down. It should be also, the tail should be down so it doesn't get ripped up when it's in cover. We call it style when you're looking in dogs in competitive side. But actually, if you breed them like that, that's the right way. Use the nose, that's the bit I can't do. Tail down, bit of style, sweet action, flat pattern into there. I hardly use the whistle on it. It's there, but also, as you see, it's still calm and sensible dog. 70 or 80% of it is breeding. Obviously, you have to train it.
How do you train your dog to keep its nose down?
Right, the first thing is it's about reward base. So everything's down there. If I kept throwing those £50 notes that we were talking about up in the air all the time, where would your head be? Sweets are up in the air. Keep looking up, which is what happens if you keep throwing dummies up in the air all the time. But if the £50 notes are on the floor and the reward's on the floor, then I'm going to find it. If I turn around to this dog now and I put my hand down like that, it's all body motion, okay? So the minute I do, you hear one whistle, and I do, head goes down, okay? And it will stay there all day, because it thinks there's £50 on the floor, yeah? So it will stay there all day, yeah?
For more about Dave's training and breeding, visit countrywaysgundogs.com.
Thanks, Dave. Next, from beautiful countryside around Bath to the magical Highlands of Scotland, where there is trouble in paradise, as Deborah Hadfield finds out.
Wild, wonderful, and at war. The Cuanag estate in the Highlands of Scotland is now at the centre of multiple battles between crofters and the conservation industry. Crofters who own a neighbouring estate are threatening to use Scotland's land reform laws forcibly to buy the estate from its owner, the John Muir Trust, which is one of the principal cheerleaders for Scottish land reform. Trouble started when Nature Scot granted a licence to the John Muir Trust for out-of-season night shooting on its land at Cuanag. JMT says it wants to protect woodland by reducing the deer numbers. The Assynt Crofters Trust, or ACT, opposes the coals because it depends on the animals for its commercial deer stalking operation. Victor Clements is a crofter and woodland expert who advises a neighbouring estate and the ACT.
A lot of people put in a lot of work to try and make things work and resolve the issues, and we feel that's been undermined. Nature Scot, I think, have allowed it to be undermined. One of the crofters used a very colourful language last week. He described John Muir Trust as Nature Scot's mad dog. And they took the view that you can't blame the dog for chasing the sheep. You have to blame the person who allowed them to do that. To us, that is actually Nature Scot. They should not have allowed those authorizations.
What do they expect us to do when we see them shooting, in effect, our income? Of course we're going to object, but I don't think we were supposed to. If you reduce the stock, then as they are trying to do on Cuanag to reduce the stock almost to zero, then the ground is not fenced off from their neighbours all around them, so the deer can move constantly from ground to ground to ground, and it causes this big problem of a reduction in the number of deer that are available.
Scottish Government body Nature Scot, formerly Scottish Natural Heritage, issued a statement. In it they said deer are an iconic species, but their numbers and lack of natural predators mean that they can have a negative impact on woodland and biodiversity. We issued the authorisation because we're satisfied that damage is occurring or likely to occur, and that no other reasonable means of control can be adopted to prevent damage. John Muir Trust says that slaughtering the deer is conservation work and protects the mountain.
The biodiversity is not in good shape. The habitats they've deteriorated. They certainly haven't been improved. Even although we took that land over, we were sold that land specifically by the previous landowner because we were an environmental charity, and we just think it's unacceptable for us to be arguing for change at national level when we are not able to make that change in our own land. So the out-of-season licence is partly driven by the wider climate emergency and what needs to be done on land, but specifically on the state of our land in Gundog at the present time, which we don't think is good enough.
The Scottish Gamekeepers Association is also concerned about the cull.
Part of the SGA's aims is to represent our members and their jobs and their livelihoods, and that is the real concern here. If you have culls, out of season culls, which are going to take so many animals out of an area, and you do have that effect, which is the vacuum effect, and there'll be more deer, which potentially would have been on our members' ground, being pulled into that area and shot out of season, then it's undeniable that there's going to be an impact on neighbours. And the fact that John Muir Trust have decided that, and they're perfectly within the rights to do this, that they have decided that they're going to do this, but without recourse to those neighbours who rely on those deer, then that's not a good situation. It's not advisable, it's not good practice. In fact, an understanding had developed in Gundog over the years where they used a local stalker, John Muir Trust, and there was an understanding there, I think, that was developing with that local stalker, but he's no longer involved. They're bringing in contract staff from the east, and they seem to have just thought, we're going to overturn all the agreements that were there before and just crack on and do what we want to do without recourse to anyone else, and that is just not acceptable.
The conflict has escalated. The ACT has made a complaint both to Scotland's Environmental Standards Authority and the Scottish Charity Regulator about the granting of the licence. Crofters say they're considering the feasibility of joining in a community buyout of the mounting at Gundog from the John Muir Trust.
The Assynt Crofters Trust, they were the first group in Scotland to do this 30 years ago. They know how to do it. They've got history of doing it. They've got any amount of good legal advice. I believe they have public support in the Highlands. They're not an organisation that you want to fall out with. So I don't understand why anyone would pick a fight with them, really.
The Crofters becoming owners of the North Assynt estate in 1992 was a move that was pivotal to the land reform movement. The ACT points out that land reform legislation allows community bodies to apply to buy land, which is being used or managed in a way that results in or causes harm to the environmental well-being of a relevant community.
It is possibly a last resort option that if JMT would come back to the table, would discuss it properly with us, would show us what they're trying to do, and also indicate that they are willing to help themselves in this, which up until now they haven't been. If you look at their attitude to fencing, then maybe we could move forward on that.
We don't think that it's serious, the proposal. We don't. We think that we understand that there's frustration, and to argue for a community buyout, to suggest a community buyout, it kind of may put more pressure on us. But we will not respond to that pressure. One, because we think that, and we are absolutely confident actually, that if this was put before the community as a whole, then there would be resounding opposition to a community buyout.
An injured deer has also sparked arguments between the two sides. Crofters claim the animal was injured in the cull.
Our stalkers, plus the neighbouring neighbouring estate stalkers, have spent 2 days now trying to track down a deer that's been shot in the mouth, and they haven't managed to catch it yet. It's gone into one of the woodlands that are supposed to be in least favoured status, according to John Muir Trust, but they can't actually find it in the wood. It's so thick and difficult to walk in. So we not only are they slaughtering deer, but they are also not following up best practice on wounded deer.
That was nothing to do with the cull that we carried out on our property in Gundog. The cull was carried out. The culls that have been carried out by some of Scotland's most trained and experienced stalkers. They are absolutely meticulous and clinical in their approach. They understand, animal welfare issues, and that we would not, in any shape or form, condone what has happened somewhere. There is no evidence it was on our property.
Both sides believe they know best for the mountain and its future.
We're once again being almost bullied by a government quango and a conservation body. And be quite honest and quite straightforward about this, we are not going to put up with it.
Clearly, traditional deer stalking estates have always been resistant to calling for conservation, certainly in our experience. We also have charitable objectives, and we have a right to manage that land to meet our charitable objectives. We won't be pushed around, but we would be more than happy to have a dialogue.
Unless the two trusts can agree and find common ground, they may not be neighbours for too long. A generation after the people who lived on the land at Assynt became the owners of their land, neighbouring Quinag could become another historic battleground for land reform in the Highlands.
Thanks all who took part in that. Now from Scotland to the wider world of hunting and shooting, films on YouTube brought to you by James Marchington. It's Hunting YouTube.
This is Hunting YouTube, which aims to show the best hunting and shooting videos that YouTube has to offer. First up this week, the Flush channel is trotting through the snow with pointers in search of ptarmigan in the mountains of Colorado. Next up, this film dives into the culture and tradition behind whale hunting in the Faroes before tasting whale meat cooked to a traditional local recipe. Here's a very different tradition, this time from Pennsylvania, where they're dressed in period clothing to hunt deer with flintlock rifles. In complete contrast, Nathan from Edge of the Outback is using the very latest Pulsar Thermion 2 rifle scope on his 6mm Tikka T3 to shoot invasive pigs, foxes and deer in Australia. Back to the UK, and TGS Outdoors meets up with Essex pigeon shooter Paul Payne for an information-packed film that goes into all the kit and tactics for a successful day's decoying. Over to Exmoor, where Rob Speed is enjoying a great day on high-driven pheasants. There's plenty of shotcam footage showing the big leads these birds need. Wash Wildfowler meets up with one of his subscribers to try his hand at stalking Chinese water a deer and ends up taking 2 good cull animals. Finally, Predator Protection UK has an action-packed day shooting grey squirrels, proving that a sub 12 foot-pound spring air rifle is perfectly capable of doing the job. That's it for this week. We've put all these films into a playlist for you. Click on the eye symbol top right or check this film's description. If you have a YouTube film you'd like us to pop into the weekly top 8, email Charlie the link, charlie@fieldsportschannel.tv.
Well, that's it for this week. If you haven't done so already, please whiz over to our website, fieldsportschannel.tv. You can click to like us there on Facebook and on Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, pop your email address into our register page, and we'll contact you about this show. Field Sports Britain is out at 7 PM UK time every Wednesday, and this has been Field Sports Britain. Good hunting, good shooting, good fishing, and goodbye.